Hello. Thank you for joining me today. I am going to be, my name is Sheila Perkins. I am the Housing Stabilization Program, HSP, analyst, and I'm going to cover the referral tracking and quarterly provider reporting that you must do every quarter. And I'm going to do this unscripted, so I'm going to freelance this a little bit. I do want to walk through this report with you. This has changed for 25-27, not significantly, but there are a few changes, and I want to make sure that we have an updated recording in the event that you need to have this shared out at any point in time during the biennium. So the quarterly HSP referral tracking and quarterly provider report is an Excel document that is submitted once a quarter to OHCS. The tracking is required for all housing stabilization funds that are used. You can also add additional columns and tabs to customize the form, and I'll cover that a little bit when we get to the tracking sheet tab. But you cannot move or delete any required fields. The required fields are all highlighted in yellow, and those are those fields that you will be required to complete something in those fields. So you have to enter all your referrals that you receive from ODEHS for the purposes of HSP assistance. If you're using this document to document other referrals for other types of assistance, you do not have to put them on this form. You can use a different form for that purpose. Or if you are using it for that purpose, you need to have some way of identifying that so that I know that those are referrals for another program. If a referral is received, you do have to complete this tracking sheet with the first name, the last name of the client, and the date of the referral in the tracking sheet. So at least those three fields, whenever you get a referral, have to be completed. If the client is then assisted with HSP funds, then you complete the rest of the tracking sheet for the client, as well as the demographic tab for that client. You'll be able to share this form with your DHS team at the case planning meetings that you do. And you can send it to them via secured email if that is something that you can do as well. And you should be having those meetings once a month, at least until the HSP funds are depleted. This document does have personally identifiable information on it, so it should be transmitted securely whenever you're transmitting it. You need to submit the form to OHCS by the 20th day following the end of every quarter. So October 20th, January 20th, April 20th, and July 20th. There are absolutely no extensions in HSP. And the reason why that is because we have to report, and I have to aggregate all the information, and I have to report it all out to OHDS by the first of the following month. So if you're giving it to me by the 20th, that gives me 10 days in order to turn it around and complete all my reporting. I have at least 5 reports that I send to ODHS on the information. So it's a lot of aggregation that I have to do, and I need to make sure that I have time to review all of your tracking sheets to make any corrections that could be necessary. So you do have to complete this in its entirety. You must complete the tab for MOE, which is your match requirement, and I'll get to that when we get there. And also you have to complete the tab for the demographic data if the client received financial assistance. You don't have to enter them in unless they're receiving HSP financial assistance. So, and we'll get to that when we get to the tracking tab, but I did want to show you a little bit more. This first tab is the instruction tab, and you can see that every single field is identified here and what should be included in that field. So you do want to make sure that if you have any questions, you come back and you take a look at this. This could help answer some of your questions. There's a big yellow highlight right here that I really want to reiterate. We ask that you do not skip any lines in any of the tabs, that you keep the data in the exact same location every quarter, that you do not sort the data, or that you move any previously reported data. As you can imagine, aggregating this information from the Excel spreadsheet is a little bit tricky, and I need to have the information in the same location every single time. This tracking sheet is meant to be used throughout the year. So you started on July 1 and it doesn't end until June 30. When you send it in at the end of the quarter, that just kind of puts a pause right there and a screenshot of what you've done to date. And then as the next quarter continues, you just continue to add to the bottom of the sheet. Do not create new tabs in this sheet for every quarter, and keep the information in the same location as you reported it last quarter. And I do a comparison between quarters. So I absolutely can tell which clients are new clients, which clients received additional funds, and I can see that as evidence on your report. So if everything is the same location, then I know exactly what I'm looking at. So let's go ahead and go to the tracking sheet. So the tracking sheet is a tab, and I really want to highlight this, and I do not know why this is missed as frequently as it is, but there are three columns up here in the upper left-hand corner that we really want you to complete. And one is your agency name, because it really is helpful once I take the document out of Procorum and I save it. It's really helpful to know whose document I'm saving. It's also super helpful to have a name and an email address for who I can contact regarding questions regarding on this spreadsheet. I frequently do have questions, and I want to be sure that I'm connecting with the right person, and I want to know who that right person is. So please do be sure that you fill out these three columns up here at the far left. As you can see, there's a bunch of red writing here. These are important tips and tricks that I want to highlight. So the form does need to identify all ODHS referrals that are received for HSP services. This form is meant to be sent to us at the end of every quarter. Again, there are the dates that you need to submit it by, and there are no extensions. The form is meant to be a running total of all your HSP activity for the whole fiscal year, so you just add to it. And you must also complete the MOE tab in order for it to be complete. So even if you're doing client information on the tracking sheet in the demographic tab, there is still the MOE tab in which we need information there. We also identify that all the referrals must be listed here. And again, you're only going to put the last name, the first name, and the date of referral. When it's referred to you, you are not required to fill everything else out until they receive assistance. So once a client receives HSP assistance, whether or not the client received a referral from ODHS, you do need to complete the rest of the required fields in the tab and complete the demographic tab on those who have received financial assistance. As you can see, the spreadsheet is split into two sides. So we have the left side, which is all of the yellow highlighted area. Those are areas that you need to complete and fill out. And then there's a bunch of fields here on the right side that are in the blue heading. These are optional fields. None of these are required. This could help you in your co-case planning meetings with DHS to have some of this information. You can also add fields in this area. So if you wanted to add a field because you wanted to track a different or additional information, you could do that within this area of the field. You could, go like this and then insert some columns there, and change whatever you want. So you could totally do that if you wanted to. You could also add them to the end of the document way over here, and you could add additional columns if you want to. I do ask that you do not change anything or the location of these fields. Again, when I'm aggregating information, I have a slick way that I can aggregate this if it's used the exact same way for everybody. If you start changing these fields, changing the location, it does definitely mess with my ability to aggregate effectively. We want you to add the client's last name and the client's first name. We ask that you do not skip lines. You do not sort this into alphabetical order. You actually put them in when you receive them and you do the referral. So let's go ahead and do like an example here. So we're going to say John Doe, and the referral was received today. That happens to be the day's date. So that would all that is all that you would need to enter in a referral is just those fields. Again, if you want to use these other optional fields, you are free to do that. Once a client is assisted, we need at least the last four digits of the social security number of the head of household, or if the head of household does not have a social security number, you can use the number of the eligible dependent child. So let's say in this case, it's, 5555. Now, this is formatted to format like a social security number. So you can either, enter, we do ask that you enter the last four digits. I know a lot of people enter the whole social security number. You don't have to unless that is like some kind of a download that you're doing. But the last four digits is sufficient. We ask for this because this is a way that ODHS is able to cross-reference clients. So that is definitely a required field. All clients are required to have a social security number. So this should never read not applicable. Either the head of household has a social security number or the eligible dependent child has one. If nobody has a social security number, the household does not qualify under HSP and must be assisted with another program. The HSP start date, this is the date of the first payment. So you want to make sure that this is the date that you first did a payment. This is not your HMIS start date. This is the date that you made the first payment. And the reason why that is important is because we should probably never see a client spanning 3 quarters in which they're getting more money and more money. And that's where you're in the housing costs here. So they shouldn't span 3 quarters. When I have the start date of the first payment, I can easily double check that to make sure that they're not exceeding the 120-day payment period. We also ask that you identify whether the client was a refugee or a teen parent. This only has one drop down. It's a yes or it's a nothing. You do not have to enter no or NA in these fields. It's either a yes or it's blank. This is a change that you will see for this biennium. Um, we ask that you confirm that the client is a TANF recipient. Now, a TANF recipient is identified by ODHS on the referral form. They should be identifying that, yes, the client is a TANF recipient. If they do say that the client is TANF eligible and they make that notation on the referral form, but they are the ones that are confirming, yes, they can be assisted with HSP, we will accept that. And you would still check the box that they are a TANF recipient. The housing costs are the costs related to rent and rent related types of expenses. And again, if you want more information about the program, you can go to our HSP program training that is also available on our MGA dashboard. But this would be the costs related to the housing costs. And I see that I have an error here. There are no auxiliary costs in this biennium. So that was actually removed. So this will be removed and we will update that. So really it is only the housing costs that you're identifying. You do not need to identify your case management costs on here, your program delivery. We will be able to pull that out of Opus, but we definitely want this amount in here. This could cover, again, it could go over multiple quarters, like another quarter. So if you assisted them with, say, $5,000 in that first quarter, but in the second quarter, they're still within their 120-day period of assistance, and you wanted to give them 3,000 more to get to the maximum of the 8,000, so you're going to pay, maybe another couple of months rent, then you would modify this in the next quarter to 8,000 And I would be able to see the change from the first quarter when you reported 5,000 to the second quarter when you reported 8,000. And I know that you added an additional $3,000 in that quarter. This is a lot of comparison on my part. So I do a lot of the work for you, but we do want you to keep this accurate and identify the total amount of assistance that they received. So in this case, I'm just going to fill this out so that we have this in its entirety. So let's say we don't assist this person until the 14th. Then we have that. And then they're not a refugee, they're not a teen parent. And so that is the extent of what I need and are required to fill out on this tab. Again, if you fill out anything on the right-hand side under these blue-headed columns, that is optional, and you can certainly do that if you'd like. The next tab is the MOE tab. And at the end of every quarter, you want to add what your match amount is and where it was sourced. So in the first quarter, you're going to put your information here. You're going to say your source is EHAP and you matched it, say $532. That's all. And if you had a second source, you would add the second source there. And if you had a third source, you would do the third source here. Do not include multiple sources on a single line, please. I definitely ask that you don't do that. When I do my reporting to DHS, I have to separate out whether or not it was a state-funded program or if it was private or foundational funding. I have to know those things, and I can tell that by the source. So be sure to separate the sources out. Do not ever correct this information in another quarter. So if you are in quarter two and you realize that you made an error in quarter one, make your correction in quarter two. So let's say that you initially reported, I'm going to make this easy for myself. So say that you initially reported that you had $5,000. And when you got to quarter two, you realized, oh my goodness, I really meant that to be a one. I accidentally, like a typo, and I typed it as five and I meant it for it to be a one. Then in the second quarter, you're going to say EHAP general fund, and you're going to say it's a negative 4,000 because now you're correcting what you already reported. Don't ever go back in here and change what you already reported because I can't change that with DHS, and that is what was reported to DHS. So make your corrections in the quarter when you notice them. Now, it say in the second quarter, you made an error in the first quarter, you only provided 1,000, and in the second quarter, you actually were providing an additional 1,000, but you still need to correct for that error. This would actually read as negative 3,000 because you're still reporting the 1,000 that you want to report in quarter two, but you're taking off the 4,000 from quarter one, and it's just a kind of a wash to the 3,000 total as a negative. So if you have any questions about how to report your MOE, please contact me. This is formatted for every quarter, and I'm gonna do this in every quarter so that you can see um, they are different colors in every quarter. So that will help you identify too and make that separation, but you only want to report in the same quarter. Again, because this is a workbook that you will use throughout the entire biennium, if you reported it in quarter one this way and you get to quarter two, this should still be filled out. This should not now be nothing because now I'm thinking, what happened? Are you trying to back out what you reported? What happened in quarter one? So please, once we're using this for the whole year, so make corrections in the quarter that it existed, and don't change previous quarter information that has been reported. Next is the demographic tab. And again, this is only for those clients that received HSP financial assistance. There is no need to enter a zero if it doesn't apply. You can enter whole numbers only in the fields that apply. We want you to double check your data for mismatches. Please do this. I see this a lot, and these are errors that I need to reach out to you and get corrected. One of the most frequent errors I see is I will see the number of persons in the household identified as 10, but the number of adults and children, you have four adults and three children. That doesn't equal 10. And so I can tell immediately that there is a data error if that is the case. That's the same thing under the demographic areas. So if you said that you had 10 adults, then there should be, say five women, five men, or otherwise this needs to equal 10. So we want to make sure that you're doing that double check yourself. Please do double check your data before you send it in, because there are a lot of errors. I'm going to be frank with you. There are a lot of errors there. So be sure that you're checking your data. When you're into the ages, again, these ages, you should have the number of people in these ages should match the number of people that you have in your household. Same with race and ethnicity. That obviously is not the same here for the disabilities. You could have less than what's in the total household if there's people that don't have disabilities here. The DB history, this should never exceed more than what are in the household. So just double check and make sure that you have that. The SNAP and the WIC. When you report these numbers, lots of folks are reporting either the household number or they're reporting the person number. We are asking for the household number. So if there is a person in the household that is receiving SNAP, that would be one person, one household. If there's five people that are receiving SNAP, that would still be a single household. So you could do one. If you do end up putting in people, that's fine too. You can go ahead and enter in the number of people. It depends on how it's coming out of HMIS, and we do not want to complicate this for you. We want to make this as simple and as aligned with HMIS as possible. We do recognize that this is a duplication to the HMIS data, and so, I do apologize for that. This is the only way that we have been able to discover how we can get the information that we need exactly how we need it. There are restrictions under HMIS and how we can pull the data. So this is the solution that we have at this point. So again, you want to make sure that this is completely filled out. All of the fields align with your HMIS data entry. The housing type, there are four different housing types. And again, if you have one adult, this should be a single adult household. You shouldn't be adding, head of household with spouse or partner when you're only showing a single adult. So again, make sure that all of these match and that your data is matching before you submit it. When you submit this documentation, you actually submit it into Procorum. At currently, if that changes, we will let you know. There is some discussions internally about having that change. I don't know if that will happen or when. So I just want to alert folks that a change in how you submit could occur. But currently, we are using Procorum. If you need access to Procorum, please reach out to me directly and I can make sure that you have access to do that. Once you submit it into Procorum, it will not stay there. If you go back and you want to look and see if you submitted it, I may have already removed it. So it is a temporary repository meant to do the back and forth with this type of information. So particularly the personally identifiable information. We want to make sure that that is protected. And so that's why we do use Procorum. But it is only a temporary repository. As soon as I download that information into my system, then I remove it out of Procorum so it does not stay there. So if you have questions about Procorum or how to have access to it or how to use it, please do contact me and I will assist you as best I can. If there are questions that I can't answer, I'll be sure I'm connecting you with the people who can make those answer your questions for you. So again, that's the extent of this report. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. Do just be sure that if you have questions, you can always go back to the instruction tab and also reach out to me. Please do hit your deadlines. Make sure that you're submitting it by the 20th of every month. And if I can be of further assistance, please reach out to me. Sheila Parkins. My email address is Sheila, Sheila .Parkins, Parkins, at hcs.oregon.gov. I hope that you find this helpful, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day.